The Harlequin. The Acrobat. This is Mirage. The Jester Warframe. Mirage's skills revolve around confusing the enemy, setting traps, and dealing damage. Using her acrobatic skills, Mirage's passive allows her to slide 85% longer and move 50% faster with rolls. If you use slides and rolls a lot, it can be good, but I don't personally use them very often, so for some people it might be an afterthought. Conjuring her mischievous nature, Hall of Mirrors creates 4 duplicates of Mirage around her that follow her actions. Enemies will be drawn to fire at the duplicates, keeping pressure off of Mirage. Along with this, the duplicates deal a sizable portion of damage dealt by Mirage's weapons, with lowered critical and status chance. If you like gunplay, this is definitely the ability for you. Sleight of Hand sets booby traps. Traps. Mirage activates a targeted object, booby-trapping it, while creating a jewel that does different effects. The jewel blinds enemies within range. Casting Sleight of Hand while using Hall of Mirrors will cause Mirage's clones to spawn smaller jewels, with reduced effects, meaning Mirage can set multiple explosive traps in one cast. Booby-trapped objects have several different effects based on what kind of object it is, so bear with me while I go down the list. Arc traps shock their allies instead of the Tenno. Consoles explode when enemies attempt to use it, dealing blast damage. Barrels, dens, containers, and resource caches blind enemies, and barrels gain twice the damage. Laser grids deal electricity damage every half second to enemies, instead restoring energy to Tenno that pass through them. Lockers detonate whenever enemies get in range, dealing true damage equal to their remaining HP. Cameras stop detecting Tenno. Turrets attack their allies. Pickups explode, dealing damage based on their pickup type. Ammo's cold, health is heat, energy is electricity, and affinity orbs are toxic. And zip lines shock the first enemy that uses them, dealing electric damage. All of that might be a bit much to remember, so do what I do. Just don't. Just use the ability. It's always going to be good for you. Using the light and shadows to her advantage, Eclipse allows Mirage to become either deadlier or tougher. Tapping the ability button will give Mirage the Lunar Eclipse effect, giving her increased damage reduction, while holding will grant her the Solar Eclipse effect, giving her increased weapon damage. It's a very simple but effective ability. They have their uses depending on which playstyle you prefer with her, though I would feel that I personally prefer the Solar Eclipse effect, as pairing it with Hall of Mirrors can be a lot of fun. Bedazzling her enemies and charring them in kind. Prism generates a reflective orb that floats through the air. Beams of light shoot off the prism, dealing high continuous radiation damage. The more damage the prism deals, the more bonus damage it generates for its duration. Be aware, the prism does drain energy for the duration. However, it can be manually detonated by recasting. Speaking of detonation, upon deactivating, or upon running out of energy, the prism detonates, blinding enemies within range. If the prism collides with an object, it will bounce off and change direction. The bounce makes it possible to have Prism basically circle back around if it hits the right angle. Or hit enemies in one room and then bounce into another one, which would be a lot of fun. Mirage is a fun frame to play if you like that kind of acrobatic play style, and her kind of lighthearted nature. At rank 30, Mirage has 300 HP, 300 shields, 105 armor, and 225 energy. She has a Nerimon aura slot, along with 1 Matter Eye and 1 Vazarin polarity. Mirage Prime has an additional 110 shields, 80 armor, and an additional Vazarin and Nerimon polarity slot. Mirage's blueprints are awarded by playing the quest Hidden Messages, unlocked after completing the Eris Junction from Pluto. When modding Mirage, survivability is not the biggest issue with her, as both her Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors can keep her going decently well, but I still recommend putting on Redirection for increased shield capacity, as it's equal to her base health on the base frame, but the Prime has slightly higher shields. As is per usual, Intensify increasing ability strength to make her damaging abilities hit harder and her supportive abilities work better. For Mirage, I actually don't recommend having range on her as much, because the only two things affected by it are Prism and Sleight of Hand, but Prism has such long range it doesn't end up mattering for Prism, and for Sleight of Hand, it also has decent enough range that it's usually not going to cause much issues. But if you want to swap out a mod for range, then that's perfectly fine. Continuity and Streamline are two that I really like on Mirage, because increased duration and increased efficiency means you don't have to cast her abilities as often, and they last a lot longer. Especially for Prism, because ability efficiency and duration both affect the amount of energy drained per second on abilities like Prism, so you can keep her going for a while. But if you want to swap out a mod, then swapping out Streamline for something like Stretch for increased range could still be good. On a similar vein, I actually recommend having Equilibrium on her. It's a relatively easy mod to get, you just gotta do the Lephantis Deimos boss a few times. It's pretty easy to get for the most part. Equilibrium will make it so health pickups give energy and vice versa, which means she can constantly be picking up health orbs to be getting quite a bit of energy back. In combination with Continuity and Streamline, means she can usually be able to cast her abilities, which means if you want to swap the effects of Eclipse, or put down more Sleight of Hand traps, then you can pretty easily. But again, if you want to swap something out, I would swap out Streamline for Stretch. Now let's see what she can do one last time. Give them the performance of their lifetime, Tenno.